Well, the Higher Education Minister, Bladin Zamanda, has announced an increase in student allowances for the first time in years. He made the revelation, or the announcement, we should say, yesterday during a briefing on the National Student Financial Aid Scheme State of Readiness for the start of the academic year for tertiary institutions. NSFAS Board Chairperson Ernest Khosa is with us in studio tonight to talk further about some of these pronouncements. A very good evening to you, sir. Thank you so much for coming in.
Viewers.
I think the deadline was midnight, was it not?
Yes,
for the last bit of
application.
application.
It was midnight yesterday.
How many more have come in?
We will still audit that, but by yesterday we had more than 1.6 million applications, the highest ever in the history of the National Student Financial Aid Scheme. Tembi, can you just allow me for a moment, seeing that we have been inundated with calls and perennial queries from parents on students who are being turned from universities because there's no evidence that they've been funded by NSFAS. The Minister of Higher Education, in his address yesterday and in our own statement, we urged universities not to turn away NSFAS-approved students. If there are those that have been turned away, please go to universities. We have communicated to universities and we have backed up urging the universities by sending funding lists. So there should be funding lists at the universities to ensure that you're not turned away. I think this is very important for parents.
So they should be able to register still?
They should be able to register, and if you're a NSFAS-funded student, there's no need for you to pay registration fees. Parents should know that.
1.6 million is what you were talking about as far as the highest number of applications that you've received for 2023.
Yes.
It is, however, a heartbreaking figure when you realize what it means. It means more and more students in this country want to study, but simply cannot afford to do it of their own means.
Yes. It also can be explained by looking at the poverty levels in the country, the impact of COVID. It has got a huge implication on our budget system for education in this country. But fortunately, Tembeka, for the first time in the history of this country, we've got what we call budget certainty. If you look at what happened about 2 years ago, those strikes that happened, one of the reasons was because there was no budget certainty. We couldn't confirm that students were funded. Government has now committed that for 3 consecutive years they'll fund us for particular figures, and the figure for this year is 4.6 billion rands, which is sufficient to take care of the needs of our students.
One of the changes you've made now, there's an introduction of a NSFAS card, basically, that will be used by students, am I correct, to access some of what they are getting from NSFAS. Why was that a necessary introduction?
You must look at it in the context of our funding model. Our funding model is what we call a comprehensive student-centered funding model, which covers the following areas. It covers accommodation, it covers study material, it covers allowances, it covers tuition fees, something that is very unparalleled throughout the world. Now, on the allowances, which will be paid via the card that you're talking about, we're doing this because of the mishaps that we had in the past few years. Remember the famous story of the 14 million rands that went to a student?
In the Eastern Cape, yes.
The reason was that, that was done by a third party contracted to an institution, and we got a very big hiding from Parliament. And for reasons of accountability, we want to take over the responsibility and be accountable and do that on our own so that we're able to account both to the shareholder and to Parliament. For that reason, we're going to pay to students directly.
Why not paying to their bank accounts? Because they're of age and would be able to withdraw from a standard bank account, which most of us usually have by the time we go to varsity, or it's fairly easy to open anyway.
Yeah, we have looked at that model, and we thought the best way is to use the NSFAS card that we can manage and that we can monitor much more closely. As it stands now, with all TVET students, the system is up and running. With universities, I must confirm that it's not up and running yet. So for maybe a few months of this year, universities will still pay those students.
There's ongoing conversation. In fact, work is in place to finalize a more comprehensive study funding model for South Africa, because we know there's the issue. NSFAS is able to help people who are below a certain threshold, but in South African society we still have the problem of the missing middle. Students whose families earn too much to qualify for NSFAS, but also earn too little to qualify for funding from a bank, for instance. What would you say a comprehensive funding plan for the tertiary sector should focus on?
The reason for the fees must fall unrest to do with exactly that question. The fact that the missing middle were not funded. There were changes that were made. For instance, at this point in time, if we fund up to a threshold of 250,000 rands, but that's not sufficient. The civil servants work for the police, teachers, nurses, do not qualify there, and they are not happy about that at all. But as for NSFAS, we concentrate on what the policies say, which is 350,000 rands. The government is in a process. You remember that there was a report called the MTT, a report commissioned by government, which the minister indicated is on its way to cabinet, which will come up with a model in collaboration with the banking community to fund the missing middle. I think that we should leave to the government.
NSFAS, and I appreciate that you weren't running affairs at the time, we know was in the news a lot because of the poor management of its finances. Administratively, it was a mess, allegations of corruption. I think there's also an SIU proclamation to look into some of that. At this point, how strong are the systems to prevent a repeat of what's happened in the last few years as far as the abuse of NSFAS systems and alleged corruption?
Just on the SIU, I just want to reiterate the fact that they came there at our invitations, who are the complainants.
Yes.
We've said that again and again. But maybe the best way to deal with this question, Tembekile, is to assure you that we're confident that we're going to have a smooth academic year. We're confident for a variety of reasons, some of which are the fact that those factors that caused unrest have been addressed. One of them is payment of allowances. We're going to pay universities in time this year. We're going to pay allowances to students, TVET students, on the 25th of each month, so there's certainty there. And once there's onboarding for university students, we're going to pay them also on the 25th of the month. The sector has been consulted quite broadly. We've consulted with the vice chancellors, with student leaders. So we are at one on the challenges that are there and on how to mitigate the risks that are there. So I am very comfortable that we're going to have a very smooth academic year this year compared to what we saw years before and what we saw during the Field Must Fall protests.
Mr. Ernest Khosa, thank you so much for coming in tonight.